All right, everybody. So, welcome. Yeah, for this little review. I'm just commentating over my own gameplay. It's going to be an encounter against Skeletons, and while that background footage is going on, I'll just kind of review some things, and I'll obviously, like in the middle of the screen, I'll post some screenshots of like things I'm talking about post editing as we go. But this is just kind of an informal review. I'm not going to review every little aspect about the game whatsoever. I'm just going to go over the notes I have, and then I'll give my thoughts kind of afterwards. And I'll tell you this from the perspective of someone who's played this game almost religiously for 20 years. I remember seeing footage of this game, I think in the 1998, 1999 over at my next door neighbor's house. But I didn't actually start playing it until around 2005. And then I stopped playing it for a few years, and since like 2009, 2010, I played this basically religiously. It's my favorite game of all time. But so we're gonna get right into the changes. So you watched my epic gameplay. I'm just teasing. So I'll probably start with some of the things that are the most noticeable, the most obvious. So on Tactician mode, which is the equivalent of this game's hard mode, the thing that is primarily the most prevalent is your units on the player team, they have a 30% damage decrease, a 30% damage reduction. In other words, you only do 70% of the damage you normally would. And there's a key distinction because I think people have been misinterpreting this. But the player has a damage debuff where they take 1.2 times as much damage. It's not that the AI, the enemy AI, the enemies that you're fighting against, it's not that they do 20% more damage. It's that your units take 20% more damage from all sources. To give you an example of this, so Agrius and Meliadul, Agrius has the Cancer zodiac sign, Meliadul has the Capricorn zodiac sign. In this game in particular, Ivalice Chronicles, there is no worse compatibility between humans anymore. It's only best compatibility. So Agrius and Meliadul have best compat, and this is to provide an example. So I just did this after I beat the game. I had 8 weapon power with Agrius from the Bloodsword times 8 PA from Agrius. She attacked Meliadul. Normally that would do 64 damage, but because of best compatibility, it did 1.5 times as much, 50% more. 64 times 1.5 is 96. And then the 1.2 times multiplier for damage taken, you take 96 and multiply that by 1.2. You end up doing 115.2 damage, but the game will always round down. So the point being is with the math, you can see it on the screen, Agrius did 115 damage, which is proof that the player takes more damage. It's not that the enemy does more damage, it's that you, the player, take more. So that's the one distinction to make. So zero point 0.7 times the amount of damage you'll do, and then you'll take 1.2 times as much. I'll provide a little video feed over this gameplay, but you could see right there, here in the deep dungeon, if you walk over a tile, if you walk over the tile that reveals the hidden passage, it won't allow you to revert and take that movement tile away. So you can see again with this example, those are 2 possible locations right there on Voyage where the hidden passage could be. So it saves you the trouble of having to spend more turns having to move and find that specific spot. So that's a nice change. It's not exclusive to Tactician mode, I believe. I'm pretty sure it isn't, but it makes things a lot easier overall. So it's easier to just kind of go to the next fight, go to the next floor. So you'll see some screenshots right here. The stats of units, especially the speed, you can see we graph right here in the 1v1 with Rivius. He has 11 speed. Under the night difficulty here in Ivalice Chronicles, he has 9 speed. And in the PlayStation 1 and War of the Lions version, he has 8 speed. So, on top of taking 1.2 times as much damage, certain boss fights, they're going to be tankier, they have more HP, and or they're going to have higher speed, so they're bigger beat sticks, basically. And, with your 30% damage reduction, in other words, you're only doing 0.75 times as much damage, it's going to be harder to just like one-shot people, which is a good thing. You don't want people just doing one-hit KOing everything. In regards to some of the stats, here's another screenshot with Vormav. As you can see, he has over 900 health. I'm pretty sure he's got like 400 to 500 health in the PlayStation 1 version. So yeah, again, this is on Tactician mode, 900 HP. It's pretty noticeable. Another key thing, another screenshot you can see right here, is that males, especially with Beowulf, and not just Beowulf, but males in general, they can access hair adornments or ribbons, barrettes, the cachucha, and perfumes. So that takes the exclusivity away from females, and as a result, they're less potent than they used to be. And specifically with Beowulf, the reason why I'm bringing him up is because with all the changes I mentioned beforehand about the damage decrease, he's in a sense indirectly buffed as a result. The perfect example, and you'll probably see it throughout this video, and actually you already have, is that he can use the break skill. And because most enemies in the game can't cure negative status effects, especially petrify or break, Beowulf is in essence indirectly affected by the damage decrease on Tactician mode, so he has more value as a result. He has more value because basically petrify, it's an instant KO, and he has that ability and has that potential. You'll see throughout this fight as well, but his drain skill takes a percentage of the boss's health, so this helps out with Zodiac monsters immensely because they have high HP pools. That damage reduction does apply to Zodiac bosses, but even so, you're still taking 500, 600, 700 HP away from bosses, which is just absolutely absurd. And I'm looking at the video feed now. Yeah, I'm looking for the break skill. And again, now he's basically just permanent dead because I have 94 faith and I kind of grind in the middle of battle. So, that's 2 permanent units I don't have to worry about anymore. But yeah, so overall, I would say, at the beginning of Chapter 4, I would recommend getting Beowulf as early as possible. Because on top of that, Beowulf also has good compatibility with Elmdor. So when he uses Chicken on Elmdor, it's pretty much going to be a 100% chance of it hitting. And, lowering Elmdor's Brave by 50 points is going to help out massively in your endeavor in trying to collect all the Genji gear. So I think he's an extremely valuable asset. Again, it's not that he got direct buffs, it's just that everybody else has become weaker as a result of Tactician mode. And again, with him being able to equip the Chantage and the Ribbon for, immortality, being immune to all negative status effects, and then permanent re-raise and permanent regen, he just has far more value. And I'll just mention one other thing, and it's not just him exclusively, but a lot of the special characters, not all of them, but a lot of them actually unlocked a bunch of extra classes. So Beowulf, as an example, he comes, when he joins you as a permanent member, he has a level 5 Bard unlocked. Cloud, he comes equipped with a regular Materia Blade at party level versus level 1. He has level 8 Samurai unlocked. Reese in her human form, she has level 8 Dragoon unlocked. Meliadul has level 5 Dancer unlocked. Orlando, he is level 6 in his base class. He hasn't learned any other job besides that. So he'll have a few skills learned, so that way you don't have to grind for them as much. But I think that pretty much, there's one more change too, and I'll put this little video feed over. Actually, it's just a screenshot, you can see it, but after you defeat Eladids, I don't know how many random encounters there are, but it is possible to fight Ultima Demons here on the end stage after beating Eladids. I don't know what other floors, if there are other possible encounters, but yes, it is doable to acquire the Ultima skill for Ramza. So in other words, it's not missable anymore. It's unmissable, in fact. It's just you have to obviously beat Eladids to at least do it here. But yeah, overall, so like with everyone, how do I say it? With everyone having higher HP pools, being able to do more damage, it does take away the one-hit KO potential. But the thing is, bosses are still subject to the same strategies as they are in the original game. So you can still kind of like obviate a lot of bosses in general. There's mana burn right there. Again, that's not necessarily anything bad. I mean, it does a fixed amount of damage. 800 HP from Ivalice is pretty good right there. But yeah, I mean, the bosses are still subject to the same strategies as before because, yeah, they have higher stats, but it doesn't really matter if they still fall subject to things like, and I don't think she's done it yet, but the chemist has access to cripple, or not cripple, she has access to the break skills, so like Ren speed. you could just kind of obviate bosses by, double, triple, if not quadruple turning them. And it just makes things a lot easier in general. Things are stalled out longer as a result of it. You're still subject to the same original strategies. I think she's going for Arts of War. Yeah, right here, Ren's speed, as you can see. 59%. That was a little bit unlucky, but that's fine. They still are falling victim to the same thing. So yeah, while it makes it a little bit more of a challenge, it's still barely noticeable at the end of the day. And again, with this particular setup, I have, three out of my four out of my 5 units having access to the Chantage, which gives them immortality. That's just overpowered in of itself. Broken in game context, in my opinion, is something that is so strong that regardless of what alterations you make to it, it's either too strong or it's too weak. So there's no point, there's no actual focal point of balance, there's no gray area. It's either black or white, it's either too good or it's awful. Like, you can't actually nerf it or buff something to the appropriate point of balance. But yeah, it's just, it definitely will stall out battles a lot longer, so you can't just like willy-nilly one-hit KO everything anymore. But if you have prior knowledge, and again, like I said, if you're a veteran such as me who's played the game for 20 years, know all the strategies, ins and outs, all the little snippets, it really isn't significantly more challenging. It's just not. I've had to reset a couple of times. One was at Bulk, the first time I fought him, because I didn't have enough people with Revival, and I couldn't wear the Chantage because of the way in which it's structured. Getting poisoned and nobody gets their re-raise right off the bat. But yeah, I mean, I only had to reset there a couple times, and then I reset it a couple more times in that fight against Rofal and Vormad because they broke some exclusive gear. So it wasn't like a reset because all my units died, and then there was another reset. It was at the Bethel Garrison Sluice because one of them broke, I think, another rare piece of equipment or something. I think they broke a ribbon. So I just did resets because I didn't want my gear broken. It wasn't because I got dominated in a fight. But overall, this does, in my opinion, Ivalice Chronicles, at least with Tactician mode, it definitely will open up the aperture. So if people want to do self-imposed restrictions, they most certainly can. And it's just going to make things a lot easier overall. If people want to do, straight character challenges with archers, or they want to do with ninjas, you have extra layers of customization and being able to throw out more challenges. And obviously the quality of life things, you don't, random battles aren't mandatory anymore. You can flee them. With consecutive battles, again, like the Rivings fights, the underground book storage, you can revert back to a previous point. So you won't basically get permanently stuck anymore with one save file. Yeah, there's a lot of quality of life changes, but overall, I think Ivalice Chronicles is we're in the year 2025 versus 1998, where a lot of the quality of life things, like I said, random battles essentially being optional. You can look at the user interface to see what classes need to be unlocked. When they're completely blacked out, means you haven't unlocked the class yet. It just makes it facilitates things a lot more easily. I do think it's just a better game overall. I do think that some of the changes, particularly with males having access to hair adornments like the ribbons and the chantages, I personally don't like that change myself because it gives that female exclusivity the advantage over their male counterparts. Because males, generally speaking, have a higher physical attack, and you can use a two martial arts ninja and do over 1,000 damage. Like I said, the exclusivity, I don't like that aspect of it. Overall, I still think it's a pretty good game. Now, again, for someone like myself, there are just still a lot of overpowered and broken strategies, but for a first timer, or someone who isn't really as well versed with the mechanics and knows the story battles, so on and so forth, I think this is definitely a great boon overall. Obviously, if this version of the game on Steam can be modded in the future, fantastic, that's great. It's a little unfortunate in my opinion. I do understand why they didn't add in the War of Alliance content because Dark Knight, Onion Knight, they talked about how it wasn't from the original dev team. I just find that a little puzzling because they talk about that, but then they'll add in like the cutscenes from the PSP, like some of the cinematics from the PSP in there. They'll use some of the translation from it. So it just seems kind of like a half-assed approach, in my opinion. That they'll use some things from War of the Lions, but they won't apply the ones that are what people are probably in demand for the most for. To me, it's a little unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. Again, I think remastering this game, it's definitely a step in the right direction. It just makes it more accessible versus having to use a PlayStation 1 or a PSP. I just think it's better overall. But with Tactician mode, it's like I mentioned before, I kind of harping on, but being able to have units that have higher base HP, damage reduction, and the fact that they do more, you can't just willy-nilly blindly just dominate everything anymore. But as long as you keep your units spread out, and you again for this Zodiac boss with Eladives, as long as you keep your units spread out, and you overwhelm him with turns by lowering his speed, you are going to do just fine overall. It's not. You just have to be cognizant, especially using the little AT meter on the leftmost side, the combat timeline, as you can see. It just makes things a lot easier to visualize. It's just, I definitely do think it's, I do think it's better overall, but even veterans, I would say they're not going to just steamroll through the game entirely. I mean, you could still use overpowered strategies if you want, but it's not necessarily an outright cakewalk and that you'll one-hit KO everything. You can still use a lot of the same prevalent strategies. It's just a lot of the benefits of being a veteran, obviously having prior knowledge of the fights and knowing what their strengths and weaknesses are, that goes a long way versus somebody who played Final Fantasy Tactics for the first time ever. In my opinion, this is just my belief, I think that someone who's never played Final Fantasy Tactics before should either stay on the Squire the easy mode or Knight the normal difficulty. I think it's intended to be done as a secondary playthrough after you've already beaten the game entirely from start to finish. That's just my belief. But yeah, I mean that's kind of, I guess you could say, my review of this. And yeah, I think that this is definitely a step in the right direction. I don't know if I'd be playing it myself anymore. I'm kind of more interested in working on my own mod in the future. I've just been dealing with some personal stuff in real life for a long time. But until that happens, until I get my, quote unquote job situation figured out, my life situation, I'm not going to be streaming or uploading videos regularly. I did this as a special occasion just because this game came out, right? Something that many hardcore fans have been waiting for 20 plus years. And yes, War of the Lions was a remake on the PSP, but think about that. That was 18 years ago. So people have been striving, hungering for something like this. And I thought, as a special occasion, I thought I would just talk about my experiences and what I think of it overall, Tactician mode and Ivalice Chronicles, but more so Tactician mode specifically. And this is another thing I'll just point out before I leave too. A lot of the bosses are vulnerable to slow, and slow basically halves your speed value. That's why you can see that number 22. He doesn't get his turn for 22 turns. This is where Zodiac beasts, this is what they fall victim to, is that their speed stack gets so crippled that, every one of your units gets 2, 3, 4 turns. So again, you get 20 turns worth of actions before they can do anything. So yeah, this is what I was talking about before, why I'm interested in my own mod of Onion Knight Edition, or I should say Onion Knight Plus now. I'm working on that stuff. I may or may not work on it behind the scenes, but I don't want to regularly stream or upload, like I mentioned before, until I get my job situation really taken care of. I've just been kind of sluggish on that, and obviously other personal demons of mine too. But all right, well, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll have to obviously go back and watch it and make sure that I'm putting up the appropriate screenshots and video feed as I'm talking post-production. But yeah, I hope you guys like this, and I'll see you all around. If you haven't considered it, contemplate liking, subbing, and all that shit. So, all right, take care, everybody.